Picture this. You have been living rent-free in a 30-room mansion for 20 years. You are embroiled in one of the biggest scandals the royal family has ever seen, and your brother the king is desperately trying to boot you out. What do? If you are Prince Andrew, you agree to leave but demand 2 houses in return. Yes, 2. Because apparently when you have been getting away with paying practically nothing for 2 decades, asking for double the properties on your way out is just good negotiating. Welcome to the absolutely bonkers world of royal property drama, where the audacity knows no bounds. If you are loving this mess as much as I am, do yourself a favor and hit that subscribe button right now. Tap the bell icon too, because trust me, the royal family keeps delivering content that is wilder than anything Netflix could script. Right? Let us unpack this madness. So Prince Andrew, formerly the Duke of York before he had to surrender that title earlier this month, has finally agreed to vacate Royal Lodge. Now, before you start celebrating this rare moment of accountability, let me hit you with the twist. He and his ex-wife Sarah Ferguson want 2 separate homes in exchange for leaving. Not one tasteful cottage, not a modest flat in Kensington. 2 entire properties. One for him, one for Fergie. The reason? Apparently they need ample space. You know, because when you have been rattling around a mansion with 99 acres for the past 2 decades, the concept of sharing a normal-sized home must feel absolutely claustrophobic. Let us rewind a bit and talk about how we even got here. Royal Lodge is not your average property. This is a Crown Estate mansion sitting pretty in Windsor Great Park, just a stone's throw from Windsor Castle. It is the kind of place that makes estate agents weep with envy. 30 rooms, sprawling grounds, the works. And Andrew has been living there since 2003, courtesy of a sweetheart deal arranged by his late mother, Queen Elizabeth II. He paid roughly £1.3 million up front, dropped another £9.9 million on renovations, and then settled into what is called a peppercorn rent arrangement. For those not fluent in British property law, that is essentially code for paying almost nothing unless someone specifically demands it. Spoiler, nobody did. The lease agreement that recently surfaced is genuinely jaw-dropping. It runs until 2078. 2078. That is 53 years from now. Andrew would be 118 years old when this lease expires. The man negotiated himself a deal that would outlast most marriages, careers, and frankly, his own relevance. And hey is the kicker. The lease applies to him and his family, giving him legal grounds to dig his heels in and refuse to budge. Which, shock of all shocks, is exactly what he has been doing while King Charles has been dropping increasingly unsubtle hints about vacating the premises. Now you might be wondering, why is Charles so desperate to evict his own brother? Well, aside from the obvious PR nightmare of having a scandal-plagued royal living in luxury for free, there's the small matter of Andrew's association with Jeffrey Epstein. You know, that minor detail that has turned Andrew into arguably the most controversial figure in the modern monarchy. The allegations, the accusations, that disastrous BBC interviewer claimed he could not sweat due to an overdose of adrenaline in the Falklands War. Honestly, if you pitched this as fiction, editors would reject it for being too unbelievable. The public outcry has been deafening, and King Charles has been scrambling to modernize the monarchy and cut costs ever since he took the throne. Having Andrew squatting in a palace-sized property while paying essentially nothing was not exactly helping that image. For 2 years, Charles has been trying to orchestrate this eviction, likely through a series of increasingly awkward family conversations that I would pay good money to witness. Can you imagine? Andrew, about Royal Lodge. Sorry, Charles. Cannot hear you over the sound of me living rent-free in this 30-room mansion. But then earlier this month, things shifted. Andrew announced he was giving up his royal titles, including that Duke of York designation he had clung to like a life raft. He also surrendered the numerous honors he had collected over the years. He framed it as a joint decision reached during discussions with King Charles, claiming the continued accusations against him were distracting from the important work of the monarchy, which is diplomatic speak for the family sat me down and told me I was becoming a liability. That announcement opened the floodgates for more details about his living situation to emerge, and suddenly everyone was asking the same question. How has Andrew been getting away with this for so long? The lease agreement obtained by the Times of London laid it all bare. 20 years of minimal payments. 20 years of living in taxpayer-funded luxury while the rest of us are struggling with energy bills and mortgage rates. The fury from the public and royal insiders alike reached fever pitch. And now we arrive at the current situation, which is somehow even more outrageous than everything that came before. Andrew has agreed to leave, but only if he and Sarah Ferguson each get their own property. Let that sink in for a moment. This is a man who has been living essentially for free, who has dragged the royal family through scandal after scandal, and he is out here making demands like he is negotiating a Hollywood contract. The sheer nerve is almost impressive. Sarah Ferguson, bless her, has been caught up in this bizarre arrangement since she and Andrew divorced back in 1996. Nearly 30 years of being divorced, yet still living together at Royal Lodge. They have maintained what they describe as a close, modern, amicable relationship, which is lovely for them, truly. But now she is apparently part of the negotiation package. Whether she asked for her own property or whether Andrew simply included it in his list of demands remains unclear. But either way, it adds yet another layer of absurdity to an already ridiculous situation. Sources claim that 2 separate dwellings are necessary to provide them both with adequate space. Adequate space. These are people who have been living in a mansion with enough rooms to house a small village. The disconnect from reality is staggering. And let us be honest, when they say adequate space, we are not talking about a 2-bedroom semi-detached. We are talking about substantial properties, likely still within the Windsor estate, probably still maintained with public money in some capacity. The bill for Andrew's housing over the years already runs into the millions, and it looks like we are about to get a sequel. The big question now is whether King Charles will actually agree to these terms. On one hand, he desperately wants Andrew out of Royal Lodge. The property could be reproposed, the optics would improve, and every day Andrew stays is another negative headline. On the other hand, handing over 2 properties to a disgraced prince who has been living rent-free for 20 years sends a rather questionable message about consequences. It is the ultimate royal catch-22. This is the monarchy in 2025, everyone. Ancient institutions colliding with modern scandals, played out in tabloid headlines with property negotiations that would make even the most hardened estate agent blush. Thanks so much for watching.